Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of Uncanny Treks as we are taking a slight divergence, a slight break from the Jonathan Hickman Avengers run to talk about Infinity Gauntlet, a very important, very influential Marvel crossover epic miniseries. I am Bob in Cascadia. That is Matt in the Southland. Matt, how you doing tonight? How did the six double-sized issues of Infinity Gauntlet treat you?
I feel I've seen the story before.
Maybe on the-
Cinematic universe.
Maybe on the movie screen? Maybe cut in two by a year?
Maybe cut in two by a year with years and years and years of buildup from other movies that I had to watch to make sure I was prepared.
Obviously, the comic and the movie are very, very different. Despite being the exact same story, they're very different, which is partially what you're saying about build-up, partially the difference between film and comics. But also, I don't think anybody knew when they were doing the Infinity Gauntlet that they were going to create something that was going to be basically shape all Marvel Cosmic Event comics for the next 40 years.
This dropped in the early 90s, so that gives you an idea of where this started. It took almost 27 years to get there.
It took quite some time. So, Matt, I guess we can come back to this at the end, too, but just ask the crude question up front. Do you prefer the comic or do you prefer the movie?
I'm going to be real honest with you, Bub. And this is going to be a hard thing for Uncanny Treks listeners to believe. I don't think I've ever watched those films all the way through.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Which is sad. I want to say I fell asleep during the second one. I tried to watch it again not too long ago. And the first one I didn't even see in theaters, and I don't remember why. I don't remember if I just had stuff going on. I don't know. I'm more willing to go see these things than you are. But I really do think I may have been going through a bit of a superhero fatigue at that
burnout.
point.
This is interesting because we're time traveling back, 8 or 9 years ago now.
Right.
And in that period of time, I didn't go see the first couple Marvel movies in theaters. I've still never seen the Hulk, and I didn't see the first Thor in theaters. But starting with Iron Man and Captain America, I think I saw all of them. And I didn't love them, but I thought they were fine. And I definitely saw both of these Infinity War movies. I can't remember which one it was, but I remember in one weekend, I think it was the opening weekend or maybe the second weekend, I saw one of the Infinity War movies, and then I immediately went over to my friend's house to watch a climactic Game of Thrones final season episode. I believe it turned out to be the one where the Night King actually got killed. That was a crazy weekend of these two stories that have been building for years, be it a lot more successfully in Game of Thrones, but building for years and years and years were being paid off. That was nuts. But after doing that, then I think the next movie was, oh, do you want to watch this Spider-Man you're only somewhat fond of go to Europe? And I was, no, I don't actually want to see that. So after the two Infinity War movies, I stopped watching every Marvel movie.
This is hilarious. You got stopped there. I stopped around Ant-Man and Wasp. Captain Marvel came out in 2019. I never saw Captain Marvel. I didn't see the Ant-Man sequels. So I stopped around then.
I saw Captain Marvel. I still have seen some since the ones. I saw Captain Marvel. I saw the first two Ant-Mans and liked the first two Ant-Mans. Then I saw the third Ant-Man on streaming. I didn't go see it in theaters, and I saw it on streaming. I thought it was the worst thing I'd ever seen in my life. I still feel that.
Avengers Endgame came out in 2019. I think I watched Infinity War. I did not watch the other one.
And I want to stress that you can sort of get there because Endgame implies that it would be the last one, but still, wouldn't it be clearer if it was just called Avengers 3 and Avengers 4? Wouldn't that be clearer?
Oh, I agree.
Just like the Spider-Man movies.
Age of Ultron I was okay with. But once I got around 2017, 18, I was getting fatigued. Civil War maybe did it in for me.
Yeah, I liked Age of Ultron. I thought there was a lot of faults to it, but I enjoyed. I thought there were virtues as well. But that was the jumping off point for a lot of people. I remember a lot of people were big mad about Age of Ultron, and then I don't think my boy Noah was big mad, but I think he was just, yeah, this isn't very good. And that was where he jumped off.
I don't remember specifically what film it was, Bob, but whenever Tony Stark decides to give up the armors, maybe it was Iron Man 3.
I think that's the end of Iron Man 3. I think.
And then the next film, he gets all the armors back again.
Can I tell you a really dark personal observation?
Go right ahead, Bob.
I made my girlfriend go with me to see Iron Man 3, man. That poor woman. She should have broken up with me right then and there.
Well, she didn't get to see Iron Man 2 with you with Whiplash.
Yeah, no, we did that together, Matt. We did that together.
And Elon Musk's cameo.
Oh, he has a cameo in that?
Yes, it's awful.
Oh, God. I don't think I knew who he was back then.
It's rough.
Oof. God. Not that I was ever going to revisit the Iron Man movies, but that's a good reminder not to. I don't think I have that movie ranked very highly on Letterboxd, but now knowing there's an Elon Musk cameo, I need to go back and put it at a half a star. It probably already is, but I need to go back and make sure it is.
I just remember that being a big deal because people were comparing Musk to Tony Stark, and that was never really a thing.
It's funny to imagine Tony Stark getting into racism and crap IQ discourse and white genocide conspiracy theories.
Yeah,
It's funny to imagine.
That's not our Tony Stark.
I did want to ask, so our main writer on Infinity Gauntlet is Jim Starlin, and then our main artist is George Perez, although he's only involved in issues 1 through 4, and then Ron Lim sort of co-draws issue 4 with Perez, and then he finishes up 5 and 6. Are you familiar with all three of these guys? Have you seen their work on other stuff? Starlin, Perez, and Lim.
I am. Starlin was, didn't he do Batman Death in the Family?
And he did, and 10 Nights of the Beast, baby.
10 Nights of the Beast with a KG Beast. Is it KGB Beast or KG Beast? We've had this discussion before, but
I can never remember. I think it's KGB Beast, but that's hard to say.
Starlin was Death in the Family, and then Perez had an Adventures of Superman run.
Are you thinking of the New 52 one?
The older, I thought.
In the New 52, when Grant Morrison is doing Bruce Springsteen Superman, the jeans and the boots, that's set 5 years before. Perez is doing the Superman, the adjectiveless Superman book, and it was really bad, and Perez, I think, only stuck around for like a couple of issues. Probably Perez did draw some Adventures of Superman back in the day, maybe in the early days of the Byrne run.
I've read some of it.
I bet you're also thinking, too, he probably did work on the title Adventures of Superman.
Adventures of Superman 457 through 459 and numbers 461.
I don't know what those would be offhand, but
come on,
I
Bob.
think
You don't know off the top of your head.
They also do the collections, the artist collections for Superman.
Then Lim, I know from, there was this comic called Venom Lethal Protector that's memorable.
That's the first Venom solo miniseries.
Correct,
right?
Yes. And that's the only reason I really remember it, because it had that cover.
I used to hate Jim Starlin, man, because I hated that Batman run when we were kids, the KGB Beast and the Death in the Family. I thought that stuff was terrible. He also did the miniseries The Cult, which I still think is terrible. It was only after I started reading some of Jim Starlin's cosmic stuff for Marvel and DC that I got a little more of an appreciation for him. I respect him now, but I like him in small doses and doing specific things. Him on Batman, I still think was terrible.
And when you pull up his whole body of work, he's got Batman and Superman random sprinkled in, but then most of it is Thanos, cosmic battles, gods, and everything you can think of, the big stuff.
He did an amazing couple of issues of Legion of Superheroes that we might look at, but he was apparently dissatisfied with how they presented the art or something. He refused to actually have his name on it. I think they credit it to Steve Apollo and Alan Smithy. And Perez, he's never super been my taste, but obviously he's one of the great artists, especially one of the great detailed artists, great crowd scene artists of comics. Very famous for the New Teen Titans with Marv Wolfman, which beautiful art on that book. I don't really like a lot of Marv Wolfman's writing, except for on Tomb of Dracula. And it's funny that Perez did the art for the 2 signature event series, Crisis on Infinite Earths for DC and Infinity Gauntlet for Marvel. And if we're comparing those, I so much prefer Infinity Gauntlet to Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's not even funny.
As I'm reading this, Bob, I can see just the way they are so similar, the similarities. It's just this giant-ass cosmic...
like 6 years apart or something?
Yeah, it really does feel that way. This is done definitely better, though. We'll get to it at the end when we talk about what our expectations were for this and where we're going to rank it. But if we were going to ever cover Infinity Crisis versus this is way above it. Crisis on Infinite Earths.
It is good in that it tells a really epic story, but it does it in a much more human grounded way than Crisis on Infinite Earths, right? Which is why I think it's so much better.
Yes. And the story is, you can follow it for the most part.
Yeah. And listeners, I don't think we're ever going to do Crisis on Infinite
Earths.
We both hate it so much.
When I was young, you listeners, I attempted to read it at several different times in my life.
You had the trade paperback when we were kids, and when we were kids, we did not easily say we disliked things.
I read it through the whole way when I was 12, and then I read it again when I was in high school, and then I read it again in college, and then I read it again as an adult, and every single time I read it, I'm just left going, this is just convoluted mess. It starts off with a really cool concept, then quickly diminishes into this hard to follow plot. Infinity Gauntlet does the exact same thing, but it's a smaller scale. as far as
Even though you're dealing with gods and
yeah,
fundamental forces of reality,
it's
it's
still a
told in a
smaller
much more.
scale.
There's the human stakes of what Thanos wants to accomplish is relatable, clear. It's clear what he wants throughout the series, right? And
Yeah.
also true for Adam Warlock. So it's just much better storytelling and presentation than Crisis on Infinite Earths.
But as we go through the different issues, I'll talk about some of the ways, the parallels to Crisis on Infinite Earths that I can actually remember.
Let me compliment you on your persistence to trying to enjoy Crisis on Infinite Earths. I just read it when you lent it to me at age 12. I thought it was even younger than that. I've never gone back to it.
It just seems so important. I hate to compare it this way, but back in the day, it seemed to me like it was sort of like a Bible, and that it told
Yeah.
you the history that I was supposed to be following in the DC universe, the start of it. It was
Yeah.
almost the big bang of our modern continuity. It's just so hard to follow. It's like the Bible.
It was always on the list of essential trade paperbacks, which I don't know, it makes me, did the people who put it on the list actually like it, or just there weren't that many and they're, oh, this is important, so I'll put it on there.
Do you think that's the same for Infinity Gauntlet, Bob? Do you think people feel that same way? Or you think they're more apt to appreciate Infinity?
No, Infinity Gauntlet, far from my favorite comic, right? Far from. But I genuinely respect the craft that goes into this. I think a lot of craft went into this. I definitely think people authentically love this comic in a way that it's harder. I know some people do, but it's just harder for me to conceptualize somebody authentically loving Crisis on Infinite Earths.
And I don't think many people could actually summarize or explain Crisis on Infinite Earths if you ask them to, which we're going to be able to summarize each of these issues, Bob. Have no fear.
And before we do that, just one quick thing. So with Ron Lim, he's very much a journeyman artist for Marvel, is my feeling. I hope that's not insulting to him. I mean it in the best way. He did a lot of art for Marvel Cosmic stuff. The two things I wanted to say that were interesting. Did you read any X-Men 2099 when we were kids, Matt?
Maybe an issue or two, but not a lot.
I think I had one issue.
It's probably the one I read.
He did at least some of the early art on X-Men 2099, which I thought was fun. I did actually read X-Men 2099 a couple years ago. It's not that great, but it was a nostalgic kick to finally be able to read all 30 issues of the silly series. And then he did the art for a crossover that I have never read, but might be interesting for us to do in some point in the nearer future. We already did the Superman versus Fantastic Four crossover from the 90s, and Ron Lim did the art for the Superman versus Silver Surfer crossover from the 90s.
We'll have to pick that up.
We'll check that out because listeners, if you want to go back, we did the Archie versus Punisher, the two Batman versus Punisher, and then we did Superman versus Fantastic Four. It was all interesting stuff.
Getting into this, Bob, though, we have our first issue in Infinity Gauntlet, which is entitled God!
Exclamation point.
Yep. And in God, Bob, Thanos collects the Infinity Gems.
So he catches all the Pokemon, Matt.
Yes.
What does he do? What does he do with all these Pokemon?
Well, Bob, he collects all those Pokemon and he snaps away half the population.
Brutal. It's so hilarious. This is one thing you probably would have to give the movies the edge over the comic. If the movies, I think, deal with the snap in a much more dramatic way, but it's so matter of fact in this comic. It's hilarious.
Half the population of the whole universe is gone. Okay, we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to show any scenes. We're not going to show too many scenes of people being sad that their family members are gone. We'll just have a big screen that shows all the people that are missing.
Yeah. Do you want me to go ahead and jump ahead and give the rundown of all the heroes who get killed in the snap, Matt?
Yeah, let's do that. There's a really good illustration of it, though, in issue 2.
It's actually very helpfully in alphabetical order on the screen, but I arranged it by team. Apparently, Jim Starlin had no use at all for Alpha Flight, Matt, because it seems all of Alpha Flight goes. There's not a single Alpha Flight character in this book.
Maybe Canada was just completely wiped out.
Yeah, maybe Canada was completely wiped out, except for Wolverine. He's like the last son of Canada.
Oh, shoot, Wolverine made it. Okay, because maybe Thanos silently whispered, like, remove half the people and all of Canada.
Remember Wanda's No More Mutants from House of M?
Right.
Thanos is just no more Canadians.
We don't Kevin Bacon around here.
Box, Diamond Lil, Guardian, Northstar, Puck, Sasquatch, Shaman, Vindicator, and Windshear are all Alpha Flight members. Even though I have skimmed all of Alpha Flight, I have to be honest, I did not remember who Diamond Lil or Windshear was. It was a little bit of a struggle at first to figure out who they were, but they were both Alpha Flight members. They're all gone. From the main Avengers, this is the early 90s Avengers, so maybe some of these were not actually on the Avengers at this time, but these are all characters I at least associate with the Avengers. Black Panther, Hawkeye, Hercules, Quicksilver, U.S. Agent, and Wasp are all gone.
Okay.
Then from the Eternals, Mercury, and Circe are gone. Do you remember them from the movie, Matt? Did you even watch the Eternals
No,
movie?
Bob, that is one of the movies that I did not watch during my exile from Marvel Cinematic
Yeah.
Universe.
Surprised because I don't think any of the other Eternals were in this comic. So I was a little confused about why he even bothered to throw Mercury and Cersei in here. I know Cersei was a member of the Avengers, right? We see her hanging out with Iron Man, Tony Stark before she vanishes. And maybe Mercury also is a member of the Avengers at this point. I'm not sure.
All the Fantastic Four, the odds were not with them. They were not in their
Yeah,
favor.
he also snaps away every member of the Fantastic Four, which was really surprising. You would have think the Thing would have stuck around. Then Matt, do you remember the New Warriors at all?
Not really. Who do they consist of?
There's more than this, but in this story, the vanished characters from the New Warriors are Firestar, Marvel Boy, and Night Thrasher. Namorita is a new warrior, and she survives. And then Nova is a new warrior, and Nova's around in this comic too, right?
Yeah, you see Nova later on.
Then on the street level, Black Cat, Dagger, Daredevil, and Luke Cage get snapped away. And then, do you remember what the deal with the X Factor was in 1990, Matt?
The main five, right?
It's the original five, and every member of the original five except Cyclops gets snapped.
Yeah, and then seeing Cyclops in this book is weird. He's like the most 90s looking Cyclops ever.
Yeah, he has that action figure look
Yeah.
that I think you had when we were kids, that blue and white X outfit. It's a very strange outfit. Yeah, so that's our casualties from the snap. And yeah, just cannot emphasize, and this is what everybody says when they go back to this comic, cannot emphasize how strange the snap is handled in these comics. It's very interesting.
I have to give props to the movie for making it more emotional than what happens here.
Yeah.
This is just more, oh, shoot, half the people are gone. We got to fix this. What are we going to do?
Another question I wanted to ask that's relevant to the movie, Matt. So we have Drax the Destroyer and Nebula, and to a lesser, very prominent in this comic, and then they've been somewhat prominent in especially the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Do you even remember Drax, Nebula, and Adam Warlock from the Guardians movies? To the extent you do remember, did any contrast in the appearances of in the film versus in this comic strike you?
It really did. And I think Gamora also makes an appearance, right?
Yeah.
She's in the later issues. I'm just not used to seeing them as these type of characters. I'm used to seeing the Gunn version.
That's exactly right. You're seeing the James Gunn versions.
They don't seem to have the personalities of the ones I'm used to.
I don't know this because I haven't read a lot of this stuff, but Starlin does a lot of build up to this. And I think the story is called Thanos Quest in the Silver Surfer comic. Then for a while, there's an ongoing series that I think Starlin does where Adam Warlock is the main guy. And I think it's Warlock with the god powers, with all spoilers, listeners. Warlock's going to take the gauntlet away from Thanos at the end of this. But I think it's hanging out with Gamora, Drax, and Pip, and a couple of other characters. And that's the Infinity Watch. So these characters, I think, are pretty developed, but we don't know much about them. It's hard to get it from the relative chaos of this comic, and it's very different than how they are in the movies.
James Gunn made them interesting. Hate them or love them, characters were not as interesting back in these days.
I'm willing to say they might be interesting. I haven't read enough of their stuff. I haven't read enough of that Infinity Watch stuff to know. It's also worth noting, too, and this is just a very small piece of trivia. So the Guardians of the Galaxy originally were future Avengers, and they only got turned into that squad of Drax and Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon and Gamora in the 2000s when Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning did a new Guardians of the Galaxy book and set them in the present. The 90s and the 70s Guardians of the Galaxy are the future Avengers. And there are some people who are a little bitter about that and who know the real Guardians of the Galaxy are the future Avengers, and the Guardians of the Galaxy who've gotten popular under that name, who had the movies made about them, that's basically just the Infinity Watch.
Call it whatever you want, but I'm going to say the Gunn characters seem way more interesting than how the characters are portrayed in this book.
That's fair.
And their designs are lame, too, in this book, too. I'm not going to lie. Those early 90s.
This is just George Perez drawing what the design was, right? I don't think this is George Perez's fault.
Yeah, the
design's not great. Another question between what's here versus what we expect, man. Early 90s Hulk, I have no idea what's going on there.
It looks like he has a drinking problem. He's always in a bar, and he's got his shirt open all the time.
Is it Banner just fully in control of the Hulk personality, or is it just a more intelligent version of the Hulk? It's not super clear to me.
I don't know, but I feel like if we look it up, we're just going to find out that when Hulk drinks, he can talk like a normal human.
I should have asked this a minute ago, Matt. So we have Pip the Troll as a reoccurring character here. Any thoughts, any use for Pip the Troll?
Not really. This
A
eventually
comedy relief
he's
character?
a little troll with a cigar. Oh, Adam Warlock's his buddy. The troll
I
comes
think
with Adam
so.
Warlock, yeah.
And Pip the Troll is on the Infinity Watch with Warlock and Gamora and Drax, I
Okay.
believe. He always seemed pretty lame to me, honestly. But again, I haven't read very much with Pip the Troll in it. Over the moon about Adam Warlock as a character, but he's a somewhat interesting character.
I don't
And
know what's going on with him. I really don't.
yeah.
But at least he's interesting looking too.
Just to give you a slight spoilers, Matt, we're gonna very occasionally keep doing the Kirby and Lee FF run. Late in the Kirby and Lee FF run, you'll see the debut of Adam Warlock.
All right.
But he won't be called Adam Warlock. He'll just be called him, capital H.
Oh,
Yeah.
like
yeah.
God.
Well, should we move on to issue 2, Bad to Worse, Matt?
Sure, Bob. In Bad to Worse, the heroes and villains react to the disappearance of half the population. But it's really them saving people. It's not them worried about
Having
their loved
emotions.
ones. Yes,
Yeah,
having emotions.
yeah.
It's half the population, the pilot was disappeared. So now they have to help stop the plane from crashing. That kind of stuff. Not, oh my God, my mom disappeared. What am I gonna do? There's no real emotion going on here. So they're all gone.
So, Matt, I know we did an episode of Doctor Strange 2, the movie, when it was in theaters, and you, out of cheapness or principle or a combination of both, weren't going to go see it in theaters. So you didn't watch Doctor Strange 2 when we did the episode about it. Have you since seen Doctor Strange 2 when it was on Disney Plus or anything?
Yes, I have, because I want to see the Illuminati.
Oh, you want to see the Illuminati?
That's all I care about.
That will be relevant to our next episode, too.
Exactly.
But do you remember, and it's a pretty small cameo, so you all may not, but do you remember the Minotaur who has a cameo in Doctor Strange 2?
Vaguely, but I did recognize that character in this book when it did show up. I was like, yeah.
His name is Rentra, and he's Doctor Strange's apprentice in the early 90s. I've read a fair amount of early 90s Doctor Strange. I'm a little nostalgic for Rentra. I like him as a character. It was cool to see him here, and it's cool to see him in Doctor Strange 2, the movie. Then to go back to things that I can't explain from the early 90s, Matt, I've actually skimmed all the early 90s Thor, the Tom DeFalco Thor, and I think what's going on here is this is Eric Masterson, not Thor Odinson, who's a construction worker who for a while replaces Thor, I think is the deal. And then do you ever remember seeing a comic called Thunderstrike?
No, not really.
Basically, Thor's equivalent of Azrael or Thor's equivalent of the Eradicator. I can't remember the circumstances or the why and the how, but it's for right now in the main book, Eric Masterson just is Thor. And then eventually Thor Odinson, real Thor, comes back. And Eric Masterson is Thunderstrike in his own book. That's not very good. But he's a bit more the Thor for the 90s. Thor is created for the 90s, but he's not quite as maybe extreme as the Azrael or the Eradicator comparison would suggest.
This is real early 90s, though, too.
Slightly before the Eradicator and Azrael, I think.
The big difference here, folks, is he has a beard. So that was the main thing. Superman got the long hair. Real got a cool suit of armor.
But it's confusing because Thor Odinson, the original Thor, sometimes has a beard. In the 80s, Hela really messes up Thor's face and scars it really badly. And so he grows a beard to cover over the scar. Speaking of mythology, we have this gimmick of we get all the gods together, the sky gods or the father gods, the chief gods of all the pantheons. And so we have a round table where we've got the sky gods from Norse, North American, Russian, Aztec, Greek, Mayan, Egyptian, and Celt mythology. I thought that was cool.
One thing I will never forget, Bob, is though Alf.
Speaking of divine beings, Matt, we get a cameo of Alf on the TV. You clocked that when you were reading?
Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. Just random 90s Alf up in there.
Well, I don't even think it's that random. I think Marvel is publishing the Alf tie-in.
Oh, that's right. So this was legit crossover. Wow, Alf made it into the Infinity Gauntlet.
On the one hand, this comic, it seems like Jim Starlin doesn't really like Alpha Flight and he doesn't really like Fantastic Four because he doesn't have any of them in this comic. But on the other hand, it does keep anticipating things that we will find in our reading of the Kirby and Lee Fantastic Four, whether that's the debut of him, aka Adam Warlock, or there's a great story that you might have read part of before when we were kids that we'll eventually get to in the Kirby FF, where we see Dr. Doom just dom the Silver Surfer. I do find that amusing that Silver Surfer is a fun character. I like him, but I like that Dr. Doom just has this guy's number.
I can't wait for the film to see Dr. Doom clothesline the Silver Surfer.
That's going to be that's
going to be worth it right there.
I won't see it because I'm not going to see that movie, but you'll tell me about it and I'll be like, I'm glad they did that.
You should have taken your superhero fatigue when I had my superhero fatigue.
I don't think the two Infinity War movies were amazing, Matt, but I do think in some ways it was the most interesting thing that the franchise had ever accomplished. If I were to able to play it all over again, Matt, I would prefer to have seen no MCU movies. I would prefer to have spent that time maybe going through Ozu's filmography or something.
Okay.
A friend asked me if I'd seen Tokyo Story last night, and I hadn't, and I was embarrassed.
You were embarrassed, but you saw Infinity War.
I saw Infinity War. Even worse, Matt, I saw Ant-Man 3 Forbidden Kingdom or whatever that was called.
I think it was called
Into the Microverse.
I think it was called Quantumania or some weird stuff like that.
I think Into the Microverse is probably what it should have been called. Oh God, it was so bad. I will say one of the things I really do enjoy about this comic is I really enjoy the dynamic where Thanos is constantly torturing Star Fox and Nebula, and Death is sitting there unimpressed, utterly unimpressed, not saying anything. And Mephisto is always constantly flattering Thanos and telling him how to impress Death, and it's just not working. I love that dynamic. And that is something the Infinity War movies weren't able to do, right? Because it pretty much just is Thanos, and Thanos just is a threat. And so there's no equivalent to Death. There's no equivalent to Mephisto. There's not even really equivalent to Nebula and Star Fox getting tortured by Thanos.
Correct.
And I think that does make the movies a bit poorer.
Because Mephisto, they have wanted him in the movies forever. People constantly think he's going to show up, and he finally did in the Agatha Harkness thing, I think.
Oh, that makes sense. I watched like 2.5 episodes of that, and then I figured out I was not the target audience, and that's fine.
He either showed up there or he showed up in whatever came out after that. I don't remember, but he shows up finally, and people keep asking, where's this dude been? Because he plays such a big part in these other things. He's supposed to constantly be there in the background. He's the devil. He needs to be there. Nebula does play a pretty big role in the films, but not in the same way.
There's nobody filling the role of, not that I'm attached to Nebula and Star Fox in this way, but there's Nebula and Star Fox being constantly tormented by Thanos. It would have been interesting if there was some character or two in that position in the film.
I'm also curious, too, if the Deadpool films will bring in Death. His girlfriend might become Death or something.
Deadpool's girlfriend in the
some
in the
stripper
movies.
that could go in that direction. Because she's been in every Deadpool film, and there's a reason they kept her around.
That makes me sad. I have a principle. I'm never going to watch a film that involves Deadpool. I'm never going to watch a film that requires me to have seen Deadpool. That's just not happening.
I'm just saying Death and Deadpool had a relationship too, right? In the comics.
I wouldn't know. Entirely possible.
Listeners will, yes, Matt, they did. Death should play a pretty big part in the MCU, but we haven't seen Death yet. We just recently seen Mephisto.
Listeners, you should not confuse this with an endorsement of the character Deadpool, who I do not endorse and whom I hate. But I do find it rather funny that apparently in the MCU or in the Marvel universe, Death is impressed with Deadpool, but she's not impressed with Thanos. That is rather funny.
That's the whole reason he goes and gets the stones. And then when he can't get Death, he makes his own woman.
Indeed.
Which he does in issue 3, Bob, Preparations for War.
One other thing about issue 2, Matt, is
I have a beautiful transition in Bob's. Oh no, one more thing.
we do see the Human Torch chilling with the West Coast Avengers. I think that's the Golden Age Human Torch, the robot, because they did have the Human Torch on the casualty bar.
He got blinked out or whatever.
I think that was Johnny Storm on the casualty bar, and I think this is the android with West Coast Avengers, but I'm not super sure about that. You had made a beautiful transition that I ruined, but now you have to go into issue number 3, Preparations for War.
Yeah, so with the help of Adam Warlock, the heroes prepare for battle against Thanos.
This issue starts out with a lot of focus on Black Widow, and I think Starlin does have a particular fondness for her. He did an original graphic novel with Black Widow and Daredevil that I still need to read.
She rescues people from a burning building.
Real street level action. While she's rescuing people, I believe we see a Toxic Avenger poster on the alley wall. We get a team in this we might call the Cosmic Avengers. We shouldn't, that would be dumb. The Primal Cosmic Forces, Matt. And one guy who feels kind of out of place because he's just a big old guy with a mustache and gray hair is the Stranger. But I did want to ask, we had a couple of Silver Age X-Men reprints when we were kids, and the Stranger factored into a couple of them. Do you remember this guy at all?
Not really. I've got to find the dude in the comic. Hold on.
He's on page 19.
19, and he's got a mustache.
Magneto tricks him a couple times in the Silver Age. He's a total non-entity of a character.
Oh, that guy. What a weirdo. What's up with that dude?
Very strange.
Looks like Colonel Sanders or some weird stuff.
A little bit. What if Colonel Sanders went cosmic? He does have a little bit of that energy.
Yeah, what a strange character. That's his name.
Just to run down, we've got the Living Tribunal, we've got Watcher, we've got the Eternal, we've got Kronos, we've got Lord Chaos and Master Order, we've got Love and Hate. We have the superhero Quasar, Matt, who's apparently empowered by what is he empowered by? I can't
I don't
remember.
remember,
Some
Bob.
a floating tentacle head. Matt, I have no idea what the deal with Epic and Quasar is.
Yeah,
I've never understood. Don't understand now.
probably need to be put in the trash bin. Okay.
All right, you already mentioned Thanos' fantasy woman,
Pretty cringe.
who's basically looks just like me. It's very strange.
Issue 3, they set up for the battle. They enter the battle at the end. And of course, in issue number 4, cosmic battle on the edge of the universe. Guess what, guys? The heroes fail. And this failure
Ooh.
leads to the arrival of Marvel's cosmic beings to take on Thanos.
And it does have an amazing cover, which, if I'm remembering correctly, I'm doing this from memory. It's Thanos by himself standing on the cover, basically saying with a word balloon, come get some.
Saying, come get some, and he's got the planets around him.
Yeah, we've got planets around him. And on page 3, we see him stop Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, with a finger. That was really cool. We see him lay down a lot of punishment on the heroes.
What I do love about this issue, Bob, though, is that the cover, you've got Thanos saying, come and get me. Then you flip the page, and it's the heroes coming at him. Literally transitions from the cover to the first page.
Love it when they do that. Love it when they do that. One thing that's interesting is they make a point of Thanos weakening himself out of pride to fight the heroes, and it's only because Thanos has weakened himself that the heroes have any chance. The actual phrase they use is he dulls his cosmic senses. But it is interesting that they do talk about the heroes only having a 0.5% chance of beating him. There's nothing exactly equivalent to that in the movies, but in the movies, there is some interesting dialogue where Doctor Strange talks about the real thin chance they have of beating Thanos. And so I do think that was somewhat inspirational.
They're trying to get the gauntlet off his hand, correct? That's the end game.
It's all a distraction play. So Silver Surfer can try to swipe the gauntlet off Thanos' hand, which they do something similar in the movie, but I honestly can't remember who's actually trying to steal it.
In issue number 5, astral conflagration. Nebula is the one who actually steals the gauntlet from Thanos.
The only two things I really wanted to say about this issue, Matt, we've already seen it, but the Ditko design of Eternity confront Thanos and then confront Nebula. And I just love the Steve Ditko design of Eternity with the universe contained within the outline of the figure. It's such a cool image. That's originally from the Steve Ditko Doctor Strange. I believe we saw it in live action in Thor 4, Lady Thor.
The thing with Nebula, though, Bob, Thanos makes it very clear that she's not going to be able to use the gauntlet to the level he does because she's not as powerful or something, or doesn't have the skills that he has.
Yeah, honestly, it feels a little sexist.
Yes, that's what I was trying to get at. What made Thanos any better in the grand scheme of things?
I guess if you were going to try to do a non-sexist explanation of this, and I haven't read Thanos Quest and Silver Surfer where he gets it, but I think he's been preparing and planning and readying himself to do the power.
This is good because this is going to go when we do talk about in our next episode, when we talk about
Captain America
using it, you're going to see that he has struggles as well. So there's like some training that needs to be involved with it that they never really go into.
You need to already be like a pretty powerful, pretty disciplined in a particular way individual like Warlock or Thanos to actually wield it successfully. So someone who hasn't prepared for it, Nebula or Steve Rogers, is not going to do a very good job.
It helps that the Avengers comic we'll be covering later, it does fix that sexualization piece you're talking about. This is dumb because then later on, Adam Warlock gets it and he's fine with it.
There's this old trope, especially in Marvel, of, Jean Grey gets too powerful, she has to be put down in the Dark Phoenix saga.
Right.
Scarlet Witch gets too powerful, she has to be put down in House of M, right?
Right.
And it a little bit puts Nebula in that. Granted, they're trying to put Thanos down, but with Thanos, it's, Thanos having the gauntlet, it's really bad. But it's also, it's something the comic can comfortably dwell with for 5 issues. But when Nebula has it, it's, oh no, this is the worst thing ever.
Correct.
Adam Warlock eventually winds up with the Infinity Gauntlet. Do you trust Adam Warlock to be God with the Infinity Gauntlet?
Not really, Bob. I don't think enough's known about Adam Warlock from the get-go. He literally comes out of a cocoon, doesn't he?
He does. He's born from a cocoon. And originally, he doesn't have a name. He's just him.
And we just all agree with him, like, okay, here, sure, take it. You know, I don't.
I do think they maybe do some specific storytelling about this in the Adam Warlock and the Infinity Watch comic, which might be interesting or good. I'd be curious how they take how Adam Warlock actually deals with the powers. But it does feel a bit, okay, here's the powers of God. Just give it to Adam Warlock. He's a good dude. I did want to ask Matt, reflecting on this slightly, do you find Farmer Thanos, is that a fitting end for the Mad Titan? Or is it way too light for a guy who killed half the universe?
I'd say it's I expected him dead. Honestly, I thought when they blasted him or whatever and he went off and he said he was going to blow up from his bomb he had attached to him, I figured that was just going to be the end. They were going to leave it open ended. So one day later, we'll find out Thanos is alive and he'll come back and be worse. But in this,
Somehow Thanos has returned.
but in this case, we just go straight into him being a farmer and having this happy life after trying to destroy half the universe. We did get a little ahead of ourselves. This issue, the final issue, is number 6, Final Confrontation, and in that issue, Nebula returns everything back to the status quo. But Adam Warlock, he done busts out the Soul Gem, and he takes the power for himself.
Indeed. So that's Infinity Gauntlet. That's the 6 double issues. It's honestly, it's a little more than I remembered. I just remembered it being 6 issues. I didn't remember it being 6 double issues. So I made you read a whole more than I thought it would be. Matt, I wanted to ask, where do we rank this?
It's going to be lower, and the reason, Bob, is like on Crisis on Infinite Earths, it has a solid start, but the ending is a bit convoluted and forced, though it's easier to follow than Crisis on Infinite Earths.
And it does much more directly emerge from character dynamics than Crisis on Infinite Earths.
There's a smaller group of characters to deal with. They all have different reasons for being there. But we were talking about with the Nebula piece, I shifts my opinion of it. And there's no real like emotion about all these people being lost. And the snap back doesn't affect anybody because it magically just fixed their brain to where I don't think they know they were missing. Whereas in the MCU, they knew they were missing. And all the people knew they were missing. They were gone for 5 years. Whereas this, it was less than, it seems like it takes place over a couple of days.
That's what it seems like, at least, yeah. On the one hand, I think this is better than Hush, but then I think everything is better than Hush. And listeners, right now, a 21-item list. Fantastic Four by John Hickman is number 1. Hush is at number 10. And Gotham Knights by A.J. Lieberman is at number 21 at the bottom. I think it's better than Hush, but I think there's things underneath Hush that are better than this. So I would lean towards putting this in at the new number 17 on our list, which would be after Matt Wagner's Dr. Midnight and before Superman versus Fantastic Four by Dan Jurgens. But where would you lean to putting it?
I think that's actually a perfect spot, Bob.
So you were not a big fan of Dr. Midnight, right? The Matt Wagner Dr. Midnight. You would prefer the Matt Wagner Dr. Midnight to this?
Most likely, yes. Just because this cosmic level tale stuff is not always my favorite, especially during this time period.
That's that we should say, because I bet a lot of our listeners have a lot stronger nostalgia for this and a lot stronger appreciation than we do. That's very fair. And this is very good. You should definitely read it if you've never read it, listeners. But ultimately, Matt and I, we were Batman, Spider-Man kids, right? We like street level stuff more than we like cosmic stuff.
I've grown to like some cosmic stuff, but with this, it gets hard to follow sometimes, especially with the number of characters, the level it's occurring, and then having to understand the sci-fi appeal and how that fits in. But that's one of the reasons we're going into Hickman, because Hickman's the same way. To me, though, it's more the writing is better.
Well, and then to close out, Matt, I originally made a more extensive list of every superhero made company-wide crossover I'd read and ranked them. But then I subdivided it by good, bad, and ugly. I'm just going to read you my good rankings, and I want to see if you agree and if you would move Infinity Gauntlet around or if you'd put any other event comics you've read in the good category.
All right, sounds good.
My good category is DC 1 million first. Final Night, that's Hal Jordan versus the Sun Eater in mid-90s DC, number 2. Invasion, that's a late 80s DC Alien Invasion crossover, number 3. Cosmic Odyssey, which is a cosmic late 80s crossover by Jim Starlin right before this, which we should look at sometime, that I like better than this. Then Infinity Gauntlet. Then Hickman's Infinity, which we will probably discuss next week. Then the Hickman Secret Wars. Then Jason Aaron's Heroes Reborn from 2021, not to be confused with the 90s Heroes Reborn. Then Grant Morrison's Final Crisis, and then 0 Hour from the early 90s.
I'll definitely put 0 Hour at the end.
And 0 Hour...
For the good rating.
Yeah. I have a lot of nostalgia for 0
bad.
Hour. Then listeners, don't worry. 0 Hour is not the bottom. There's such a long...
Oh, yeah, so many more. Don't worry. This is his good column. At the bottom of the good column is 0 Hour.
Did I leave anything out of the good that you like, Matt?
I have a fondness for Civil War. You put it in the bad.
It would be clear, the stuff I put in the bad, I put 5 crossovers in the bad. I do think they're bad, but I all enjoy them still. I should call those enjoyable bad, whereas the ugly are the ones that I deeply hate.
I didn't have much of a problem with Maybe I'm just remembering everything wrong. Avengers versus X-Men doesn't seem as bad to me.
It's so bad.
Okay.
It's so bad,
Well,
dog.
well, Bob, I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and keep going through your list because I'm here reading stuff I shouldn't even be talking about. Go ahead. Hit bad.
All right, well, bad, but still enjoyable bad. Legends from the 80s DC, Millennium from 80s DC, Avengers versus X-Men versus Eternals from a couple of years ago, Fear Itself from Marvel, that's Fraction, and Civil War from Marvel by Miller. And then under the ugly, I've got Avengers versus X-Men, the original Secret Wars from the 80s, Green Lantern Blackest Night, Inhumans versus X-Men, House of M, Metal, Death Metal, Infinite Crisis, Dark Crisis, Crisis on Infinite Earths, Heroes in Crisis, Doomsday Clock, Identity
Yeah,
Crisis.
all those DC ones can go at the end right there.
Yeah.
That's perfect. The only one I would consider House of M is where it needs to be as well.
The thing I hate about House of M is not the event itself, it's what it does to the X-Men and what it does to Scarlet Witch.
And Avengers versus X-Men, I don't know why. For some reason, I didn't think it was as bad as you. I'd have to go back and reread it. I would probably move Civil War to good, Bob, if I had to.
That's fair. Are there any you've read? Because there's a lot I haven't read. Are there any you can remember reading that I didn't include?
I think you hit most of the ones that actually matter. I don't see anything that's
Yeah.
crazy sticking out.
Chris?
Identity Crisis is definitely the worst of the worst.
Identity Crisis is the pits. It'll never get worse than that. Well, listeners, you've heard us talk Infinity Gauntlet in a very casual way. I hope if you do love this comic, I hope it doesn't bother you too much. We'll check back in and reflect on Infinity Gauntlet a little more as we continue the Hickman run on Avengers, as we look at Hickman's Infinity crossover and other aspects of that run. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Bob in Cascadia. That's Matt in the Southland. Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks for listening.